They thought they had caught the co-ed killer. The trial was over. The cameras were gone. The nightmare was supposed to be finished. Then another college student disappeared. Same pattern, same type of campus, same late-night routine. But the man blamed for the crimes was already behind bars. So here's the question that changed everything. What if the co-ed killer was never just one person? They thought the nightmare was over. The courtroom was silent when the verdict was read. Reporters leaned forward. Families held their breath. The man sitting at the defense table did not move. He stared straight ahead, calm, almost bored. For years, students across California had whispered a name in fear, the co-ed killer. But now, he was in handcuffs. The police believed they had finally stopped the man who hunted young college women near campuses, who moved from city to city, leaving behind fear and unanswered questions. Outside the courthouse, flashing cameras lit up the sky. Officers said the pattern had ended. But that night, hundreds of miles away, another call came in. Another young woman, another college town, and the details were familiar, very familiar. Had they caught the right man? Or had the real predator just watched the trial on television? Months earlier, California, late 1970s, the campuses were full of life. Music drifted from dorm windows. Students hurried between classes with books pressed to their chests. The future felt wide open. Then one student did not come home. She was 19, a freshman, smart, kind. Her friends said she was careful. She studied in the library that night. She texted no one. There were no cell phones then. She simply vanished between the campus walkway and her dorm. At first, police thought it was a missing persons case. Maybe she left with someone she knew. Maybe she needed space. But when they searched the path she usually took, they found something that changed everything. Her books were scattered near a quiet parking lot. Her car keys lay on the ground. There were no signs of a fight. No witnesses. No clear suspect. Just silence. Then, weeks later, another campus. Another missing student. Same age range. Same late-night study routine. Same quiet parking area. Different city. Different county. At first, the cases were handled separately. Local police departments did not always share information quickly in those days. There were no shared digital databases. No instant fingerprint comparisons across states. But detectives began to notice something. The victims were all college-aged women. They were taken at night. They were last seen alone. And the crimes happened near campuses, but not inside them. Just outside the edges, where security cameras were rare and patrols were light. The press gave the unknown suspect a name, the co-ed killer. Fear spread faster than facts. Parents called their daughters every night. Universities warned students to walk in groups. Dorm curfews became stricter. Campus police added extra patrol cars. But the disappearances continued. In one case, a student reported a strange man offering help with her car near a campus parking lot. He was polite, well-spoken, calm. He claimed to be a graduate student. She declined and walked away. Later, when she saw his sketch on the news, her heart dropped. Detectives began building a profile. They brought in experts trained in criminal profiling, a growing field at the time. These specialists studied behavior patterns. They looked at crime scenes, victim choices, and timing. The profiler spoke quietly in a small meeting room filled with maps. "This offender is organized," he said. "He plans ahead. He studies his targets. He chooses locations where he can control the situation." He pointed to a map of California. The crimes were not random dots. They followed highways. The suspect likely traveled often. He understood campus routines. He blended in. He may appear educated, the profiler continued. He may use charm to lower defenses. The room fell silent. Because that description could fit thousands of men. Weeks turned into months. Then a break came. A patrol officer pulled over a vehicle near a college town late at night. The driver seemed nervous but cooperative. Inside the car, the officer noticed unusual items: rope, gloves, and a detailed campus map with certain buildings circled. The driver claimed he liked hiking. He claimed the map was for exploring. He smiled as he spoke. His name was familiar. He had once been a student. He had moved between cities frequently. He had no serious criminal record, but when detectives searched his apartment with a warrant, they found more. Newspaper clippings about missing co-eds, photographs of campuses, detailed notes about schedules and security patrol times. The case exploded across national headlines. The co-ed killer had a face. At least, that's what everyone believed. During interrogation, he denied everything. Calm, steady, he asked for a lawyer quickly. The evidence was strong, but mostly circumstantial. There were no clear eyewitnesses placing him at every scene. Forensic science in the 1970s was limited. DNA testing did not yet exist, but investigators believed the pattern was clear. Same victim profile, same timing, same geographic movement. They built their case around behavior. Prosecutors argued that only one man matched the travel records, the campus knowledge, and the suspicious materials found in his home. Families of victims sat through every court session. They wanted answers. They wanted closure. And when the jury finally returned with a guilty verdict on multiple counts, many believed the nightmare had ended. Campus safety policies changed almost overnight. Universities added emergency phones along walkways. Escort services were expanded. Lighting improved in parking areas. Law enforcement agencies began sharing case information more actively across counties. The co-ed killer case reshaped how police departments cooperated. It showed that serial crimes could cross city lines and that patterns mattered. But then came the phone call. A college sophomore in Northern California did not return to her dorm after an evening study session. Her friends called campus security. Police searched the usual path, and near a quiet lot just outside campus grounds, they found her backpack. Her books were scattered. Her keys lay on the pavement, just like before. But the man convicted as the co-ed killer was already behind bars, locked away. Under constant supervision, detectives stared at the scene under flashing lights. The pattern had returned, and this time, it was impossible. Unless they had been hunting only one shadow, while another walked free. The lead detective picked up the fallen notebook carefully. Inside, written in blue ink, was something that made his stomach tighten. A message, not from the victim. A single sentence, "You missed me." The investigation was about to begin all over again. The note was real. "You missed me." The words were written neatly, calmly, not rushed. The detective held the notebook under the patrol car lights. His jaw tightened. Around him, officers searched the dark parking lot in silence. The man they had called the co-ed killer was locked in a state prison cell. So who wrote this? And how did they know the exact pattern? Back at headquarters, the room felt heavy. On one wall hung a giant map of California. Red pins marked every known attack connected to the first suspect. Blue pins now marked the new disappearance. The blue pin sat far north in a college town not previously connected to the case. But the details were chilling. College-aged woman, taken at night, last seen alone after studying. Personal items left scattered near a quiet parking area just outside campus boundaries. And now, a message. Investigators faced two possible truths. One, the original suspect had an accomplice. Or two, they had arrested the wrong man. Neither option felt safe. The prison interview room was cold. The convicted man sat calmly across from detectives. His prison uniform was plain. His eyes were steady. He had heard about the new disappearance on the news. He smiled slightly. "I told you," he said. "You wanted a monster so badly. You made me into one." Detectives watched his face closely. No anger, no panic, only confidence. "You think someone is copying me?" he asked softly. That word copying caught their attention. Copying? Why would he assume that? Unless he knew more than he should. But he refused to say anything else without his attorney present. Back in the investigation room, profilers studied both crime scenes side by side. They compared photographs. They studied timelines. They looked at the spacing between incidents. The original series of crimes had followed major highways. The suspect traveled often for work, giving him a reason to move between cities. But this new case did not match that pattern perfectly. The location was different. The spacing in time was different. The note was completely new. The original crimes had no messages left behind. One profiler tapped his pen against the table. "If this is the same offender, he said slowly. He's evolving. And if it's not, another detective asked, then someone is studying the case very carefully. The media exploded with speculation. Was there a second co-ed killer? Was the first trial rushed? Parents demanded answers. Campus officials held emergency meetings. Universities strengthened safety rules again. More lighting, more patrols, more emergency call boxes. Students walked in groups, clutching their books tighter. Fear returned. Investigators widened their focus. They began looking at men who had followed the original trial closely. True crime followers, former classmates, anyone who had shown unusual interest. One name surfaced repeatedly, a former campus security volunteer. He had attended public court hearings. He had written letters to the convicted man in prison. He had even given interviews to small local newspapers about justice. His background showed something else. He had worked part-time near the campus where the new disappearance occurred. Detectives brought him in for questioning. He seemed nervous. Sweat formed on his forehead. But he denied everything. I just followed the case like everyone else, he said. It scared me too. They searched his apartment with a warrant. Inside, they found stacks of newspaper articles about the original crimes. They found campus maps. They found handwritten notes analyzing police mistakes from the first investigation. But they did not find clear evidence tying him to the new disappearance. No physical proof. No direct link. Once again, the case balanced on suspicion without certainty. Meanwhile, forensic science was improving. By the early 1980s, new techniques allowed investigators to compare fibers, tire impressions, and trace evidence more accurately. They reopened older evidence from the original crime scenes. They compared it to materials found in the suspect's vehicle and apartment. Some matches were strong, but not all. In fact, in two of the earliest cases, there were subtle differences in method. The approach, the location choice, the timing. One profiler leaned back in his chair. What if, he said quietly, there were always two? The room went silent. Two offenders, one more organized and careful, the other learning, watching, adapting. It would explain the slight changes in behavior, the new message, the shift in location, but it would also mean something terrifying. They had only caught half of the problem. Then came another break. A witness stepped forward after seeing a televised documentary about the case. She remembered something small. Years earlier, on one of the original campuses, she saw two men arguing near a parking lot late at night. One matched the description of the convicted suspect. The other did not. She never reported it. At the time, she thought it was nothing. But now, with the new disappearance, she felt it mattered. Detectives asked her to describe the second man. Her sketch did not match the security volunteer. It did not match anyone in their current suspect list. But it did resemble someone else. A former classmate of the convicted man. A man who had also transferred between campuses during the same years. A man who had never been interviewed, because his name had never surfaced. Until now, when detectives located him, he was living quietly in another state, working a stable job, no serious criminal record, polite, calm, educated. He agreed to speak voluntarily. During questioning, he admitted he knew the convicted man years ago. Yes, he said, we studied together. We talked about campus safety issues. Did you attend the trial? Detectives asked. He nodded. I wanted justice, he said. His voice did not shake. When asked about the new disappearance, he showed surprise. But his answers were careful. Too careful. When shown the note, "You missed me," he stared at it for a long moment. Then he looked up. That's clever, he said. Clever, not tragic, not frightening. Clever. Detectives felt a chill run through the room. They requested a search warrant. Inside his garage, hidden behind storage boxes, they found something that made every officer freeze. A detailed folder. Inside were campus maps from multiple California universities, some dating back years, some recent. And on one map, circled in red, was the exact parking lot where the newest disappearance happened. The date written next to it was 3 days before the crime. The evidence was finally beginning to align. But one question remained. If this man was involved, was he the original killer? Or had the first suspect truly acted alone before him? As detectives prepared for arrest, a call came in from another county, another campus, another missing student. And this time, security cameras had captured a vehicle leaving the area. The license plate traced back to a rental car, rented that same week, by the man whose garage held the red circled map. Detectives moved fast, but when they arrived at his home with a warrant, he was gone. On the kitchen table sat an envelope. Inside was a single newspaper clipping about the first trial. The hunt was no longer about one killer. It was about understanding how many shadows had been hiding in plain sight. The house was quiet, too quiet. Detectives stood in the kitchen, staring at the note left on the table. Patterns only matter if you see all of them. The man they had just connected to multiple campuses was gone. His car was gone. His job had received a short message that morning. He would not be coming back. He had planned this. Within hours, state police, highway patrol, and federal agents were working together. This was no longer just a county case. It had crossed cities. It had crossed years. It had crossed mistakes. The rental car from the latest disappearance had already been returned wiped clean, but investigators pulled traffic camera footage from highways leading out of town. There it was, the same vehicle heading south. The timing matched the window after the crime. The hunt began. At the command center, profilers spread out everything they knew. 2 men, 1 convicted, 1 on the run, both educated, both familiar with college campuses, both fascinated by control, but their behaviors were not identical. The first offender, the one already imprisoned, had been methodical. He followed routines. He traveled predictable highways. He left no messages. The second suspect was different. He studied the first case like a textbook. He learned from it. He inserted himself into the investigation by attending trials and speaking publicly about justice. He evolved. And then he left a message. Profilers believed something important. The second man may have committed crimes during the same years as the first, but investigators had grouped them all together under one name. The co-ed killer. 1 title, 2 offenders, 1 mistake. They reopened every case file. They compared crime scene details more carefully than ever before. In some cases, the approach was quiet and calculated, with very little disturbance. In others, there were small but meaningful differences, timing changes, location shifts, slight variations in method. Before, those differences were seen as growth. Now, they looked like fingerprints. Not physical fingerprints, behavioral ones. Criminal profiling had matured since the 1970s. Investigators now understood that serial offenders have signatures, habits they cannot fully hide. The first man preferred certain campus layouts. The second chose slightly different surroundings. The first struck along highways tied to his job travel. The second targeted campuses near places he had personal connections. It was all there. They had just never separated the threads. Then came the break they needed. A gas station attendant in Central California saw a news alert on television about the suspect on the run. He recognized the face immediately. The man had stopped there hours earlier, paid in cash, asked about back roads. The attendant called the tip line. Police moved quickly. They traced security cameras along rural highways. The suspect was driving toward a smaller college town, one not previously linked to the cases. Officers alerted campus security immediately. Dorms were placed on temporary lockdown. Patrol cars circled parking lots. Students were told to remain indoors. The coordination was faster than it had ever been years earlier. Because this case had changed the system, police departments across counties were now sharing live updates. Information moved in minutes, not months. Late that night, a patrol officer spotted the vehicle parked near a wooded trail just outside campus grounds. Backup arrived silently. Officers approached carefully. The suspect sat inside the car, engine off. Maps were spread across the passenger seat. A notebook lay open. When they ordered him out, he did not resist. He simply looked at the officers and said, "You finally saw it." During interrogation, he spoke more than the first man ever had. He admitted studying the original crimes closely. He admitted admiring the planning, but he denied working directly with the convicted killer. Instead, he claimed something colder. "I realized you were chasing a single story," he said. "It made it easier." Investigators believe he committed at least one early crime during the original timeline, one that had been incorrectly attributed to the first offender. After the trial, when he saw the world relax, he felt invisible. He believed he had outsmarted the system. The note at the second crime scene was not just a message to police. It was a message about their mistake. In court, the prosecution presented something powerful. Not just physical evidence, but behavioral evidence. They showed jurors side-by-side maps. They explained how criminal profiling works, how patterns of movement, victim selection, and decision-making reveal identity. They demonstrated how two different offenders left two different behavioral signatures. For the first time, the public saw how modern investigative profiling could separate what once looked identical. The jury listened carefully. Families listened even more carefully. Because this trial was not only about guilt, it was about truth. The verdict came after days of deliberation. Guilty. The second man was sentenced to life in prison. The first man remained incarcerated for his confirmed crimes. Two offenders. One shared label, but no longer one story. The co-ed killer cases reshaped more than just police files. Campuses across California permanently changed safety policies. Emergency phones became standard. Campus escort programs expanded. Parking areas were redesigned with better lighting. Law enforcement agencies created regional task forces to track serial patterns across jurisdictions. And criminal profiling became a trusted tool, not just a theory. Most importantly, investigators learned something critical. When crimes look the same, they may not come from the same person. Patterns must be studied carefully, because missing one detail can hide an entire truth. Years later, a retired detective stood in front of a classroom of young officers. He held up a simple map. Red dots, blue dots. "We almost closed our eyes too soon," he told them. "We wanted one answer, but the truth was more complicated." He paused. "Always look for the second pattern outside." Students walked safely across a bright campus walkway. They did not know the history of the ground beneath them, but they lived with the changes it created. The co-ed killer was not one shadow. It was two men who believed they were smarter than everyone else. In the end, it was patience, profiling, and coordination that exposed them. And it all began with one sentence written in blue ink. "You missed me. This time, they didn't."